Hey everyone, welcome. So, I want to talk today about my choices or decisions on maybe looking at getting a tiny house. So, I began this journey of a tiny house maybe a couple years back, and I saw this amazing lady named Jewel Pearson who owned a tiny house out of Charlotte, North Carolina. She has since moved further out onto like a farmland. One of her friends' home has a land or something like that. But I may be wrong what I say, but I did remember speaking with her. I actually went to one of her tiny home gatherings that she's doing now once a month. But it's in Charlotte and I flew there. But the tiny home movement is something I think is super cool. One thing that I've learned is that you got to have the proper builder in order to get a tiny home built the proper way. I live in Florida, guys, and if everyone knows, and actually it's going on right now, is that hurricanes do come, right? And so, with that said, if you are in a tiny home, it's sort of like it's licensed, or how do we say it? The city sees it as a RV structure because it's not, foundational built. So with the tiny homes, this is the dilemma that we have in Florida. Now, I could probably go to Tennessee and get me a tiny home built. Matter of fact, there's several communities in Tennessee. The only thing, guys, I don't like about Tennessee, and y'all already know, I live in Florida. I love warm weather. I don't like cold weather. I do not like the winter any longer. I am a VA girl, RVA girl, born and raised with the Four Seasons. However, I went to college in North Carolina, Four Seasons again, and I made a declaration to myself that this is it. I'm not doing Four Seasons. So I moved away to here in Florida. And this is where I've been since about 2014. Give or take, I went away to go to stay in Atlanta for a little bit. But for the most part, I've lived here. So with that said, the tiny home movement here is slow in the process. In Florida, there are a couple of communities in the areas there. Okay, let's just be honest. The areas that they have the communities, that's not where I want to live. I don't know exactly what would be the ideal area for me in a tiny home in the state of Florida, but I do know I love the warm weather. So I did consider on the brisk of Georgia. And if y'all ever heard of Brunswick, Georgia, is really country. I won't go into details about it, but it is kind of country, but it does have some super cool areas. However, that's on the Florida area. And then Tennessee, of course, is on the other. So it's not far away, the Georgia, South Carolina. But again, I go back, guys, unless I'm going to move to California. I love Florida. I love the weather. I love the things. I do miss the mountains of North Carolina and Virginia, so I will throw that in. But in the tiny home movement, you have to get a proper builder. One thing that Jules shared with us is that people will say they can build a tiny home, but they really can't. They do not know the proper structure, the measurements, because I think a tiny home is under 400 square feet. And y'all can drop in the comments if I'm wrong. I think it's less than 400 square feet is considered tiny. And y'all know most buildings or most homes are 1,000 square feet or more. And with that said, that's when you have to look at codes from the city, from the county. If I purchase land, I will have to have a septic, or I have to get tapped into the city water. Roads, some roads could be non-paved and the city doesn't take care of them. Then you're talking about in case of a hurricane or the storms or rain or what have you, you can wash out a whole road. Now, some people might say, that's your fault. You live in Florida. You're right. You're correct. I never thought of the tiny movement until I got probably near here. Well, I'm not going to even say that because when I first moved here, I thought I wanted to live in a high rise in the downtown area of the city, right? I've changed that. Now, I will say this, though. I do enjoy having a regular home. I've had one when I was married with my children. I did move into an apartment. I do enjoy the apartment living when I pull up. I don't have to pay for anything as far as you pay rent, but I don't have to get, the maintenance person comes in, fix the item, and keep it moving. I don't have to wait and get something repaired or whatever. I know people say, oh, you're going to be concerned about legacy and all that. And I'm like, my kids would not even live in the home. Once I even bought a home, they're not going to live in the home if I pass away. I just don't see my children doing that. They have their own life. And I'm very proud of them for having their own lives and want to live where they want to live and live the life they want to live. So I don't see that. When people say, big mama's house and all that, it causes a lot of arguments sometimes in families. But with me, with the tiny home, I could see my grandson having additional source of income. Like he could rent it out for, I guess Airbnb it or things of that nature. If I have land, maybe we'll have some things on the land where he can, rent out some things. I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box. But yeah, tiny home has been in my consideration. One, being the minimalist, I definitely would still have to downsize. So I don't know if you guys are considering getting a tiny home. If you're, in my channel, because I feel like most people in my channel kind of like that lifestyle of living with the less and minimally living and not doing a whole bunch. So that's kind of like where I kind of want to achieve that. I want to kind of be in a sense of, living within my means. I know Jewel on her, I think she's called Bohemian Soul is her channel. I may be wrong, but Jewel Pearson is her name. So if you look her up, you'll see her tiny home. One thing she shared, and I didn't even know this, she had a stroke. And she had the stroke, and she said the tiny home saved her life. And I'm thinking the reason why she said that is because she had paid that home off in cash. I mean, she had to borrow a couple of dollars here and there, but she's paid back the people. And the land, I think, is I don't know how she pays her. I think it's a lease agreement with her and the person, and she pays a certain amount of money. But I'm pretty sure it's very minimal because of what she's done to build the house and knowing that it's paid for. So I could see her not being worried about so much money. And even the electricity and the water is totally different than living in a big old house. Now, she has expanded her house. I know I wish I had the measurements in front of me, guys. Because she said when she added on to her porch and all that, they added some square footage. But like say she started off with 300 some square feet and then add a couple spaces. But it's still not 1,000 square feet of a home. So with the tiny home movement, I did get to go to Gainesville, Florida with another former coworker where I worked part-time at a hotel. He and I went. We had a great time. Younger guy. He wanted to have a tiny home at one point. And he really saw the differences, and he was like, wow, this is really small. And I was able to get inside the homes, and I was like, wait a minute, because when you have your loft and stuff, y'all, and then you get in there and it's like, okay, so I'm short. I consider my short lady. I'm 5'3". So here I am 5'3", and it's like crouching to get to slide my body across the loft. And I'm like, yo, guys, I'm over 50, honey. I'm not trying to slide anywhere. So if I did get a tiny home, I definitely would look into getting one that has a ground floor bedroom. Now, my grandson, he's going to be tall. I already see it. And he's almost as tall as I am. So at 8 years old. So he would be the one sliding up there going into the loft when he comes to stay for the summer. So I think that's pretty cool. But I am considering that. But I'm also looking at maybe just building a smaller home, no more than 1,000 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a big, huge bathroom that I would have the section off where people come visit. They would have their own separate area. But I don't know, maybe even two bedroom, 1.5 bath. So I could do a half bath with just the shower stall and the sink and all for them. Then I would have the luxury tub. I would love to have one of those barrel saunas. I've seen them. I know I definitely have that on my land. And I want to have a jacuzzi, but I want spring water in my jacuzzi. I want it to be super hot so I can just lay in it. And then I think about a cold room, but then again, I don't know. I'm thinking about that. But here I am dreaming, right? And it's okay. I've been doing the spin fast and thinking about my finances and looking at everything, thinking about going back to school. It's so many things going on. But if I had like a smaller home with low expenses, I even thought about getting, which we'll talk about at one point, a teardrop camper. and just lived in that while I go to school, and then, park in different places where I would pay a certain amount, which I'm still going to consider looking at. Because, I have an SUV. I can pull a small teardrop trailer behind my SUV, right? So I'm not concerned about that. And I live in Florida. Yes, we do have hurricanes, but I could drive out of that situation, right? So it's so many things to consider when you're trying to look into whether you want to buy, get a tiny home, get a regular home. I know the houses now are $300,000 starting. The newer constructions are amazing, but $300,000 the base. And guys, you're talking to a lady who's owned, or the bank owner, but I was paying the bank. You know how I go. You know how you say you own it, but technically the bank do. 2 houses, and both of my houses together, together or 250,000. So that means one house like 87,000, 87.5 when I bought it. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, me and my ex-husband. And then the second house was 175,000, 5 bedrooms and 3 baths. And so I'm like, wow. Had I kept my house, but still, here's the deal. I didn't keep my house. I didn't keep either home. We sold one to get another. And we got that one. We ended up getting divorced, and I end up, asking, can we just sell it and, getting the proceeds or whatever. I will say this, guys. I just don't see myself spending $300,000 for a home. I don't. You could say legacy, you can say whatever. I can figure it out. I can go buy some property and listen. I'm going to listen to, what's her name? Daphne. She bought property and let people rent out the house, and she stay in an apartment. So I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about getting a couple rentals, buy the homes or whatever, rent rooms, and just take that money and live me a nice luxury apartment and get me my teardrop camper and go camping and drive all over U.S. and buy me maybe another SUV. I don't know. I definitely would like to have like a little boat, but I don't have to own it. I could just get a kayak, I guess. But yeah, so tiny homes, I'm dreaming. Tiny home could be a teardrop trailer for me. I love tents. I just bought me a nice tent. So listen, if you guys are thinking about tiny homes, drop in the comments what your ideal tiny home would look like. Tell me if you think that would be a better choice than getting a $300,000 house with maybe a 15, 18, I don't even know what the square footage is now. I know in Florida it's not cheap. I went around and I saw some homes in certain areas, and I know without a shadow of a doubt they were starting off at $300,000, and the townhomes were about the same. So if I were to purchase, I would have to get maybe a pre-loved townhome. But then again, I don't want a townhome because guess what? It's just like living in an apartment. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, tiny home I've been thinking about it. But that scooting around, not being able to stand up in the top part of the house, I don't think that's the way I want to go. And like I said, I've tried it. I went to a tiny home festival. I talked to Jewel. She loves her home. Looks a lot different, and she has her bedroom, if I'm not mistaken. No, she may have her bedroom upstairs. I gotta go look again. And it might be a little bit taller upstairs in her area, and I would have to look at all of that. And again, you have to get a great builder. You got to be able to, because they don't want to finance these homes, y'all, because the bank looks at the fact that it's not on foundation, which means it can be swept away, and you can move it, right? So they're like, wait a minute, our investment is that you are going to be at that spot. You get mad, you go move that house, and they still financing the house. But there is a couple banks that I think do finance the tiny homes, and if I'm not mistaken, down in Tennessee, his name is escaping me. I should know his name because I watch his show, but he has a tiny home movement in the town and down in Tennessee, and the place looks phenomenal. I just don't know if I want, like I said, I want to live in Tennessee. I could own it, but then here's the deal. So in some tiny homes, they don't want you to own it and not live in it. They definitely, Randy, his name is Randy with the small tiny home movement down there. They want you to live in it. They don't want you just to rent it out because they want to have community. So they form a community, and if you don't live there, that's not really community, right? Okay, well, I just want to talk about a little bit about the tiny home. Let me know what you think. If you want to hear more things about tiny home living, teardrop trailers, camping, things of that nature, all about living minimally, then go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what y'all think. Anyway, in the meantime, my thing is all about trying to save money. I wasn't born with a gold spoon in my mouth or a silver spoon or anything. I came from hardworking people. And yes, I am what they call my ancestors' dreams or whatever. I work. I have a professional position. I can go back to school. And I live modestly. And I love life. Peace and love.